If you've made it this far, then you already understand something most casual viewers don't. The ending of Stranger Things wasn't clean. It wasn't airtight. And it definitely wasn't accidental. So now I want to hear from you. Because this finale doesn't live or die on what the writers intended. It lives on how the audience interprets what was left behind. And there is a lot left behind. Drop a comment right now and answer one question honestly. Do you believe 11 survived? Or do you think the show deliberately let her die while letting us believe otherwise? And I don't mean what you want to believe. I mean what the evidence actually supports. If you think she lived, explain how she reached the gate without using her powers. If you think she died, explain why Netflix spent millions filming a final scene in Iceland just to show her standing alone. There is no wrong answer here, but there are weak arguments, and I want to see which side actually holds up under scrutiny. Now, here's the bigger question. What is the single most important storyline the finale ignored? Was it Will's connection to Vecna? Max's mother being erased from existence? The military plotline vanishing overnight? The cracks in Hawkins still being there? Or the fact that half the show's canon is now locked inside a stage play most people never saw? Write it down. Be specific. Don't just say plot holes. Point to the moment that broke your immersion and never recovered. Because here's the truth, a lot of people don't want to admit. This finale didn't fail because it was confusing. It failed because it didn't care about clarity. And the Duffers admitted that. They admitted they didn't think about certain characters. They admitted some answers weren't priorities. They admitted they ran out of time and pushed forward anyway. That doesn't make them villains, but it does change how we judge the ending. So let's talk about accountability. Do you think it's acceptable for a show this big, this expensive, and this culturally dominant to leave so many critical answers unresolved? Or do you think Ambiguity is a valid artistic choice, even when it's clearly driven by budget, time pressure, and franchise planning? That debate matters, because Stranger Things isn't over. Netflix is still moving forward with the IP. There's an animated series coming. There's a live-action spin-off planned. And the stage play is expected to land on the platform eventually. Which means what you believe about this ending shapes how you'll view everything that comes next. If 11 comes back in a future project, will that feel earned? Or will it feel like confirmation that the ending was deliberately engineered as a loophole? And if she doesn't come back, will you see the finale as tragic or evasive? Let me know. Also, if there's a moment from the finale you defended at first, but now see differently after this breakdown, say so. Those are the most interesting comments. That's where real discussion happens. If you want more deep dive content like this, breaking down abandoned arcs, deleted scenes, canon contradictions, and franchise decisions, make sure you're subscribed. This channel isn't here to summarize episodes. It's here to dissect them. In upcoming videos, I'll be covering the animated Stranger Things series and where it fits in the timeline, the live-action spin-off, and why it's intentionally avoiding Hawkins, the first Shadow stage play, and why it quietly rewrites major canon, and a full timeline reconstruction, showing what the finale actually confirms versus what it avoids. If there's a specific topic you want next, write it in the comments. I actually read them, and yes, I respond. And finally, if you disagree with anything in this video, I want that too. Push back. Challenge the interpretation. Bring receipts. This story is big enough to support multiple readings, but not lazy ones. Thanks for watching. And remember, if the ending still doesn't sit right with you, that's probably because it wasn't designed to. I'll see you in the next one. Everything you think you understand about the Stranger Things ending is incomplete. Not misunderstood. Not open to interpretation. Incomplete. What you watched wasn't the full story. It was the version that survived deadlines, budget ceilings, and last-minute creative decisions that quietly erased entire arcs from existence. Scenes were cut. Endings were rewritten. Characters disappeared without explanation. Emotional payoffs were skipped entirely. And some of the most important answers were never meant to be on screen at all. This wasn't a carefully paced conclusion. It was a speed run. Critical lore was pushed off-screen. Canon backstory was hidden inside a stage play most fans will never see. And buried in the final moments is one visual detail so subtle that nearly everyone missed it. A detail that completely changes the meaning of the finale and forces a terrifying question back onto the table. Did 11 actually survive? Or did we just watch the illusion of survival? Because once you start connecting the dots, the ending stops lining up. Vecna was originally supposed to turn. Will had a completely different role in the final battle. Several character arcs were abandoned mid-sentence. Entire explanations were removed not because they didn't matter, but because there wasn't time to care anymore. And the Duffers themselves have now admitted, in interviews after the finale, that some of the questions fans have been arguing about for years were either ignored, rushed, or never seriously discussed in the writer's room at all. This video is about everything that was left behind. Deleted scenes, alternate endings, abandoned storylines, quiet retcons, and one final creative choice made at the very end that reframes the last chapter entirely. When you piece it all together, the truth becomes unavoidable. The ending you saw wasn't the ending they originally planned. From the outside, the ending of Stranger Things looks complete. There is a final battle, a defeat of evil, a graduation, a sense of closure. But once you slow it down and examine what isn't shown, the structure starts to collapse. This finale wasn't built, it was assembled under pressure. After the season aired, the Duffer brothers began doing interviews, and something unusual happened. They didn't hide behind ambiguity. They didn't give non-answers. They openly admitted that large portions of the story were rushed, ignored, or removed entirely because they ran out of time, budget, or patience. This matters because Stranger Things wasn't designed to end small. By season 4, the show had expanded into something massive, multiple dimensions, dozens of characters, military conspiracies, supernatural mythology, and emotional arcs stretching back to childhood. Trying to end all of that in a single oversized episode created an impossible problem. So choices were made. The epilogue alone consumes nearly 30 minutes. That left roughly 90 minutes to resolve everything else. That includes the final confrontation, character resolutions, mythological explanations, and emotional closure. Something had to give. What gave was depth. This is why the finale feels like it's constantly saying, "We don't have time for that, move on." Conversations end too quickly. Reactions never happen. Characters skip entire emotional beats. Information that should be devastating is treated as background noise. It's also why so many moments feel like plot holes when they're actually absences. Not mysteries, absences. When fans accused the finale of being vague, the Duffers pushed back slightly, but then admitted something far more revealing. Many of the questions people were asking simply weren't priorities during the writing process. Some details were never discussed. Others were intentionally dropped. And a few were written, filmed, and then removed to make the runtime work. That's not speculation. That's their own explanation. This is the foundation of everything that follows. If you approach the ending expecting tight narrative logic, you're already asking for something the finale wasn't built to deliver. It wasn't a carefully layered conclusion. It was a compressed version of a much larger story. And nowhere is that more obvious than in what they did to Vecna. One of the biggest revelations from post-finale interviews is that Vecna was never meant to be purely evil at the end. In the original plan, Vecna was always going to die. That never changed, but how he died did. The Duffers revealed that Will was originally meant to play a far more active role in the final confrontation, not just as a passive emotional compass, but as a catalyst. Will's connection to Vecna wasn't just pain, it was influence. The idea was that Will would successfully reach Henry Creel, forcing him to resist the mind flayer at the last moment. Not redeemed, not forgiven, but aware. A tragic final realization. a moment of rebellion, a choice. That arc was cut for one reason. There wasn't enough room to do it properly. A redemption, even a partial one, requires setup, internal conflict, and payoff. And more importantly, it required revealing far more of Henry Creel's backstory than the show was willing to explain on-screen. That backstory already exists, but it lives almost entirely in the first Shadow stage play. This is where the structural problem becomes unavoidable. The Duffers chose to make the stage play fully canon. That means major revelations, Project Rainbow, Henry's childhood, Joyce and Hopper's shared past, the early experiments, are all real official story content. But the vast majority of the audience has never seen them. So instead of adapting that information into the finale, the writers avoided it altogether. This is why Vecna remains loyal to the Mind Flayer until the end. Not because it was the best story choice, but because it was the only one that fit. And this decision had ripple effects. Will's arc collapses. His connection never fully pays off. His emotional insight becomes symbolic rather than functional. He survives, but his role is reduced. Not because the story demanded it, but because the runtime did. The result is a villain who dies without transformation and a character who never fulfills his narrative potential. Both are casualties of compression. Once you notice the missing arcs, you can't unsee them. Max's mother is the clearest example. She never appears in season 5. She isn't told Max woke up. She isn't present at graduation. She simply vanishes. The actress herself publicly complained after the finale aired, which strongly suggests she was never asked to return. There is no in-universe explanation, and the Duffers didn't offer one. This isn't mystery, it's neglect. The same thing happens with Vicky. Her relationship with Robin is left unresolved, not because it's ambiguous, but because the writers never decided what happened. When asked directly, they said fans could decide for themselves. That answer is revealing, not because it's lazy, but because it's honest. They genuinely didn't care enough to resolve it. This pattern repeats everywhere. The military storyline disappears. Dr. Owens vanishes. The cracks in Hawkins remain unexplained. The tunnels still exist. The town is structurally destroyed, but the story treats it like a footnote. When asked what happened to the military, the Duffers admitted they never thought about it. Their assumption was that the military probably packed up and left. Probably. That single word tells you everything. This wasn't a carefully architected conclusion. It was triage. And the characters who didn't directly serve the emotional goodbye were left behind. Now we reach the moment that reframes the entire ending. The Duffers confirmed several critical facts about 11. She never contacted Mike after the finale. She could not have used her powers at the gate. She could not have physically reached the gate in time. Those 3 facts cannot coexist unless something else happened. The only logical conclusion is that the 11 scene at the gate was not real. An illusion. That illusion could not have been created by 11 herself. It had to be created by Kali after 11 passed through. The timing works. The exotic matter hadn't detonated yet. The sequence allows it. Which raises the most disturbing implication. Hopper had to believe 11 was dead. Earlier, Kali explains the core idea. The cycle only ends if the world believes you're gone. If anyone suspects 11 survived, the program resumes. The hunt begins again. That's why Hopper couldn't know. That's why the illusion exists. That's why 11 disappears. And then there's the waterfall scene. It was filmed in Iceland. It was extremely expensive, and it was added late. Originally, the ending was more ambiguous. Mike hears the feedback at graduation and realizes something doesn't add up. That's it. No confirmation. No image of 11 alive. The waterfall scene exists for one reason: future flexibility. Netflix wanted a door left open. The Duffers refused to confirm whether 11 lived or died. Not because they don't know, but because ambiguity protects the franchise. And that's the final truth. This ending wasn't about certainty. It was about options. When the screen finally faded to black on Stranger Things, a lot of people felt something strange. Not sadness, not satisfaction, something quieter, something unresolved. That feeling wasn't confusion. It was absence. The absence of moments that should have existed. The absence of reactions that should have landed. The absence of answers that the story itself had trained us to expect. And now, after breaking down deleted scenes, abandoned arcs, off-screen canon, and post-finale admissions from the creators themselves, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. This ending wasn't incomplete by accident. It was incomplete by design. Not because the writers were careless, but because they were constrained by time, by budget, by the sheer weight of a franchise that outgrew its ability to end cleanly. The finale wasn't written in a vacuum. It was written under pressure, and pressure changes priorities. What mattered most was emotional closure for the core group. What mattered least were the connective tissues, the explanations, the logic, the consequences. That's why so many things simply disappear. That's why characters vanish without farewell. That's why world-altering events are treated like background noise. And once you understand that, the ending stops being a mystery and starts being a compromise. A carefully managed compromise. But here's the part that really matters. Even with all of that, despite the rushed packing, the skipped arcs, the unanswered questions, the finale still made one very deliberate choice. It refused to lock the door. Especially when it came to 11. They could have confirmed her death. They could have confirmed her survival. They did neither. Instead, they constructed a moment that technically works either way, then reinforced that ambiguity with just enough visual language to keep future options alive. Not emotionally alive, legally alive, narratively flexible. That isn't accidental. That's franchise math. And this is where the conversation shifts from story analysis to audience responsibility. Because endings don't just belong to creators. They belong to viewers who decide whether an ending feels honest or evasive. So now the question is, what happened? The question is, are you satisfied with how little was confirmed? Do you feel that ambiguity enhanced the story or weakened it? Do you believe the ending respected the time you invested across 5 seasons? Or do you feel it asked you to do too much of the work yourself? There is no universally correct answer, but there is a conversation worth having. So here's your call to action, and it's not passive. I want you to write one comment, answering only one of these questions. Which unresolved moment bothered you the most, and why? Or, which unanswered question do you think the writers intentionally avoided? Or, do you believe the ending would have been stronger if it committed to a definitive outcome for 11? Be specific. Vague reactions don't move the conversation forward. Specific critiques do. And if you disagreed with any part of this breakdown, say so. Disagreement is valuable when it's argued, not dismissed. Bring your evidence. Point to scenes. Point to dialogue. That's how real analysis happens. If you found yourself rethinking moments you originally accepted without question, that's the sign this discussion matters. Because Stranger Things isn't just a show that ended. It's a case study in what happens when a story becomes bigger than its ending. Netflix is still moving forward with this universe. Spin-offs are coming. Animated projects are coming. Canon is still being reshaped retroactively. And how you interpret this finale will shape how you receive everything that follows. If 11 returns someday, will it feel earned or inevitable? If she doesn't, will this ending age as tragic or incomplete? Those answers don't exist yet, but your interpretation does. If you want more long-form breakdowns like this, focused on what stories avoid as much as what they show, make sure you're subscribed. This channel exists to analyze endings that leave people arguing, not just applauding. And finally, if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's this. The most important part of the Stranger Things ending wasn't what we saw. It was what we were never shown, and what that silence tells us. Thanks for watching.